I've spent over 100 hours unlocking every achievement in Kingdom Come Deliverance, and in this video I'm going to walk you through how to get 100% achievements in KCD. I've organized this into different sections to highlight whether they're part of the main story, side quests, activities, or DLCs, with timestamps in the description for easy navigation. There's also a Notion page with detailed instructions on how to get each achievement, so you can track your progress and focus only on the ones you still need to unlock. Link for that is in the description. Now let's begin. There's a total of 82 achievements available within Kingdom Come Deliverance, with 17 related to the main questline, 8 associated with side quests, 24 with activities, and 33 with DLCs. First, I'm going to cover all the achievements related to the main questline, and to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, I'm only going to cover the achievements that are missable as it relates to this category. Of the 17 achievements, there are 10 that are missable, with the other 7 being naturally unlocked through progression. I'm going to go through the list of these missable achievements in chronological order. The first missable achievement is called Firestarter, and it's only available within the tutorial. To unlock this, commit any crime within the starting town of Skalitz, surrender to the guards, and agree with imprisonment. A short cutscene will play with the human invasion happening while Henry's incarcerated, and the achievement will unlock at the end of the cutscene. Just make sure to save before doing this, since this will result in Henry dying. Cavalier requires Henry to save Theresa from the human attackers as he escapes from Skalitz. You can either strike them with your weapon or whistle for your horse to distract them, and the achievement will unlock as soon as you do so. Up next, the achievement Ginger requires you to save Ginger from the bandits that are hunting him in the quest Ginger in a Pickle. Don't lie to Ginger about already having killed the bandits, as this can make this achievement unobtainable. After agreeing to kill the bandits, you can either track them down to their camp, or you can run back to Captain Bernard in Neuhof, ask for his help, and he and his men will kill them for you. Go back to Ginger, convince him to go back to Neuhof, and the next time you speak to him in Neuhof, this achievement will unlock.
How you doing? Good.
Sinner requires you to get drunk with Father Godwin in the quest Mysterious Ways. If you pass a stat check, this achievement becomes unobtainable, so make sure you fail it on purpose, then meet him at the tavern at night and agree to drink with him. As soon as the cutscene ends, this achievement will unlock. Plague Doctor is a hybrid of being both a side quest and a main story quest achievement, since it's the main quest line that brings you here, but it's the side quest Pestilence that requires you to heal all the sick villagers. If you already know how to read before starting this quest, it makes it much simpler. First, speak to Melikar about finding help, then investigate the NPCs Daniel, Bedrishka, Old Straw's wife, and Vincent. Make sure to also speak to Matthias, who's laid up in the stables, for more clues. After having all the correct symptoms, go to Sasau, speak to Brother Nicodemus about finding a cure, read the book he assigns you, and pick the correct ailment. I'm going to quickly flash the answer up on the screen, so for those that want the solution, feel free to pause the video, but anyone that wants to figure this out on their own, look away in 3, 2, 1... After giving Brother Nicodemus the correct sickness, you can either brew the cure yourself or have Brother Nicodemus do it, as long as you spoke to all the afflicted and gave him the correct symptoms. Go back to Merciful, give the cure to Daniel, Bedrishka, Vincent, and Melikar's wife, then wait a few hours and speak to Melikar. If everything was done correctly, he'll tell you everyone in the village is better, and the achievement will unlock as soon as you exit his dialogue.
Gifts to the two of you.
As a final warning, this quest is timed, so you'll have about 1 in-game week until the villagers start dying off, so try not to get distracted while doing this quest if you want this achievement. While a week might seem like plenty of time, going to jail or getting sidetracked while hunting down the cure is a quick way to miss this achievement. Monk simply requires you to join the monastery during the quest Poverty, Chastity, and Obedience. The reason I classified this one as missable is there are several ways of completing this quest without joining the monastery, and before you join, you must already know how to read. Once you know how to read, obtain the writ from the novice Carl, speak to Brother Porter, and agree to join the monastery, and this achievement will unlock right after the cutscene. Talmberger requires all the optional objectives during the main story quest Siege to be completed. This requires you to speak to several NPCs around the camps that have various quests for you to do to assist with the war efforts. Make sure to complete all the optional objectives before helping Master Fafar, as advancing this quest too far will cause the optional objectives to fail, therefore making this achievement unobtainable. All these optional objectives are pretty basic fetch quests that require some resource gathering and talking to various NPCs, so you shouldn't have much trouble completing them. If you're still unsure on what you need to do, make sure to check out the Notion page linked in the description for a more comprehensive checklist. These can be done in any order, and as soon as the objectives for the Quartermaster, Robard, Divish, and Captain Bernard are completed, this achievement will unlock. Freud is missable since failing any of Eric's stat checks in the quest family values will make this achievement unobtainable. You'll need to pass 2 speech, 1 charisma, and 1 intimidation skill check. Eric has 11 speech, 9 charisma, and 14 strength, so as long as your stats are higher than his in each category, you'll pass these without a problem. The achievement unlocks as soon as you pass the final stat check. The final 2 main story missable achievements are a couple of the hardest in the game, since these aren't necessarily tied to any quests, but rather on the actions taken throughout the entirety of a playthrough. First, let's start with Virgin. This requires you to complete the entire game without ever doing the deed at any point in your playthrough. Paying for a wench in the bathhouse, completing Theresa's 3rd and final quest in courtship, drinking with Father Godwin during mysterious ways, or choosing to strip in front of Lady Stephanie during the quest At Your Service, My Lady, will make this achievement unobtainable. Since each of those except for the bathhouse are tied to their own achievements, I suggest making a save before each of those activities so you can reload a prior save to continue the playthrough. As long as all the above quests and activities were avoided throughout the course of a playthrough, this achievement will unlock at the start of the final cutscene. Merciful is equally as hard since it requires a completely pacifist run through the entire game, and Henry isn't allowed to kill anyone except for Run. This can be tracked in your player menu under Statistics, Combat, and People Killed. As long as your people killed stat stays at 0 until Privoslavitz and most likely goes to 1 after killing Runt, this achievement will also unlock in this final cutscene. For suggestions on how to get through each of the main story quests passively, go to the Notion page, but for general gameplay, I actually think I found a pretty engaging way to still have fun while going for this achievement, which I'll call the fight and bite method. Since Henry can only ever knock enemies out with his fists, I equipped my Henry with some heavy armor, got Mutt as my companion, unlocked the sick perk available at level 5 in Houndmaster, and turned into medieval Mike Tyson, beating enemies down with my fists and having Mutt come in for the killing blow. Any kills done by Mutt don't count towards the player, so you can rest easy at night knowing you have the world's most violent dog by your side. A word of caution though, he can sometimes get a bit carried away. We need to take this one alive. Get out of here, Cujo! Killer dog, you have more No! Oh my goodness! Mutt, you With all the missable main story quests done, the next category I'll cover is all the achievements tied to side quests, but first, a quick word from today's video sponsor. Getting every achievement in Kingdom Come Deliverance can seem like a daunting task, but achieving victory on the battlefield has never been easier thanks to today's video sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, and it's available now for free on PC, consoles, and mobile devices. Take control of over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from 10 major nations, spanning from the biplanes and armored cars of the 1920s to today's cutting-edge fighter jets and main battle tanks. With stunningly realistic graphics, immersive sound effects, and intricate vehicle details, you'll feel like you're in the cockpit or behind the wheel of these iconic war machines. Join over 70 million players worldwide and experience the thrill of intense combat, all while exploring one of the most in-depth vehicle damage models in gaming. Whether it's the engine, fuel tank, weapons, or crews, every part of the vehicle is vulnerable to enemy fire, and different ammo types react just like they would in real life. War Thunder offers tons of customization options that let you deck out your tanks and aircraft with historical markings, unique camo, and even community-created designs. There's also an all-new mobile version available on iOS and Android, so you can take the battlefield with you wherever you go. You can choose from 3 different game modes, ranging from arcade mode for those that crave fast-paced action and simplified physics, all the way to simulation mode that drops all handicaps to provide the ultimate challenge. I personally recommend realistic mode, which strikes a great balance of intensity and authenticity. Play War Thunder now for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile devices. Click the links in the pinned comment or the video description to sign up today. If you're new to the game or haven't played in the last 6 months, you'll receive an epic bonus pack on PC or consoles, including multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive Eagle of Valor vehicle decorator, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of premium account access. This offer is only available for a limited time, so don't miss out. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video and helping to support this channel. Now once again for the side quests, in the interest of trying to keep everything as spoiler free as possible, rather than covering how to complete each side quest, instead I'll highlight what needs to be done to trigger these side quests and specific things within the quests that need to be approached with caution. Casanova requires you to court Lady Stephanie. You'll need to speak with her in Talmberger anytime after completing the tutorial, which will start the side quest at your service, my lady. After getting all her required items, hand them in to Lady Stephanie and make sure to agree trying on her shirt by selecting all right within her dialogue. This achievement will unlock right after the cutscene. McLovin requires courting Theresa. Her side quest courtship becomes available a couple of in-game days after getting to Rattay, or immediately after starting the patrol in the main questline, Keeping the Peace. There's a total of 3 parts, each one becoming available a couple of in-game days apart. At the conclusion of the 3rd part, the achievement will unlock after a cutscene. Bad Trip requires completing the side quest Playing with the Devil, given by Father Godwin in Ujits anytime after completing the tutorial. After completing the objectives, talk to Father Godwin about the results and the achievement will unlock. Doing this side quest will not actually void the Virgin achievement. Knightrider requires you to come in first place in the Talmberger horse race during the quest The Sport of Kings. This side quest becomes available from Zora and Neuhoff after completing the main story quest Mysterious Ways. Follow Zora's instructions, set up the horse race, and make sure you come in first place. For those that are having difficulty, if you have a fully decked out horse, you don't actually have to do the race on Zora's horse. After taking her mount to the entrance, switch her horse out for yours and proceed to all the marked flags. After hitting the final flag, make a left up the hill and go around behind the castle. As you approach the finish line, mount back up on Zora's horse, which should be waiting for you at the finish line, and then complete the race. The game will still register as though you did the entire thing on Zora's horse. As soon as you talk to Sir Divish after finishing in first place, this achievement will unlock.
Thank you, my lord. Thank you. I'll pass your message on to him.
Spoilsport requires you to complete the side quest Money for Old Rope for the Rattay Executioner after first completing his quest Tough Love. You'll need to put together the clues on how the convicts will be executed based on their crimes and their social status. I'll flash up the solution on the screen for those that want the answers. Feel free to pause the video, but for those that want to figure it out on their own, look away in 3, 2, 1. After knowing the methods, you'll have to sneak into the camp and complete all 3 tasks. I would strongly suggest saving before sneaking into the camp, as getting caught sabotaging any of these items will result in this achievement being unobtainable, since all 3 tasks must be done successfully. Tell Herman you've done as he asked, and the executions will take place the following day at noon. Worth noting here that the executions don't actually have to be witnessed for this achievement. As long as the tasks were done, go speak to Herman after the executions take place and the achievement will unlock. Master Huntsman requires you to complete the side quest Cherchez la Femme, given by Hannikin Hare. You'll first have to complete either Hare Hunt, given by the Talmberger huntsman Nicholas, or Sheep in Wolf's Clothing, given by Andrew at the Inn in the Glade. Either one of these will set up a meeting with Hannikin Hare, and you must choose to side with Hannikin for this quest to activate it. After completing Hannikin's master plan, accept your new position as Talmberger's Master Huntsman, and this achievement will unlock. Robber Baron requires you to complete the side quest aptly named Robber Baron. It's given to you by Hans Capon in Rattay's Lower Castle, and you'll first have to complete main story quest Questions and Answers and Hans Capon's first quest called Next to Godliness. Hanush will tell you about a robber baron pillaging in the area and request that you deal with the problem. After completing the quest, speak to Sir Hanush and the achievement will unlock.
Thank you, sir.
And finally, Judas is unlocked by finishing the side quest A Rock in a Hard Place, which first requires completing Matthew and Fritz's quests A Friend in Need, Is a Friend Indeed, and Masquerade. First speak to Matthew at the Inn in the Glade to start the quest, then make sure to speak to the innkeeper Andrew before moving forward with the quest objectives, or else this achievement might become unobtainable. Andrew suggests turning Matthew and Fritz in for their plans to rob the quarry. Speak to Matthew about Andrew's plan to betray them and progress the plan by following the quest log. After the heist, travel back to Andrew's inn and plant the empty bag in his cellar, then ride over to Talmberger. Make sure to save before speaking to Sir Robard, as unlocking this achievement will make the achievement Friends Without Benefits, which I'll cover later, unobtainable. Tell Sir Robard about the theft and name Matthew, Fritz, and Andrew as the culprits. Travel back to the inn in the glade, look at the gallows by the entrance, and interact with the bodies to unlock this achievement.
So many plots and intrigues, and nothing remains but dead bodies.
The next category of achievements is related to activities that are done throughout a playthrough. There aren't many missable achievements here, and most of them can actually be tracked within your statistic tab in your player menu. These following 5 achievements' progress can all be tracked under the general tab. Fatso requires you to be above 100 nourishment for a total of 2 in-game days. This is tracked in time overstuffed. Anorectic is the opposite, requiring you to spend 3 in-game days with a nourishment level of 50 or fewer. This can be tracked under time starving. Insomniac requires you to be below 50 energy for 2 days. This stat can be tracked in time exhausted. It's special to note that all 3 of these stats are cumulative rather than consecutive. All the values can be accrued over the course of a playthrough, so don't think that any of these have to be done in a single sitting. Doing things like going to sleep hungry or reading while overstuffed are great passive ways to slowly build towards these achievements over time, and most players will probably unlock these just by naturally playing the game. Scrooge requires you to have at least 5,000 groschen in your inventory. This achievement can be tracked in most money owned. And finally, Ranger requires you to travel 50 kilometers on foot. This doesn't matter if you walk, run, or sprint despite what the achievement says. As soon as your total distance on foot reaches 50 kilometers, this achievement will unlock. The following 5 achievements can all be tracked within the Combat tab. Stealth Killer requires you to kill 20 enemies by stealth. This will require a stealth skill of at least 5 with the stealth kill perk selected and a dagger in your inventory. In order to stealth kill, crouch down behind an enemy or beside ones that are asleep and hold down the stealth kill button. It's also worth noting that enemies that are walking around have a small chance to resist the stealth kill attempt, whereas ones that are asleep or sitting down can't, so these will always be easier to pull off. This number can be tracked in enemies killed by stealth. Sniper requires you to kill 50 enemies with headshots. While this may sound daunting, remember that it doesn't require the enemies to be conscious while you do so throughout a playthrough you can use enemy behavior to your advantage. Enemies that are sleeping or ones who've surrendered can make easy targets, or you can simply choke out an enemy first, then finish them off with a headshot. For those that play on PC, you can enter in WH_PL_show fire cursor 1 in the console command menu, and you'll have the yellow dot that appears in the center of the screen whilst having your bow drawn. This will still require a bit of skill to pull off since it won't account for arrow drop, but at least you'll have a small reference as to where your arrow might go. Personally, I prefer playing without the cursor, but hey, it's your game, so if this is what makes it more enjoyable for you, I say go for it. I'll also mention that these previous 2 achievements are limited to only targets that are registered as enemies. That means these stats only increase from killing humans and bandits, not villagers, guards, or wayfarers that you might encounter. The sniper stat can be tracked under enemies killed by headshots. Serial Killer, on the other hand, requires you to kill 200 people. Unlike the previous 2, this one doesn't limit you to just your enemies. Anyone that you kill will count towards this stat, so if you ever wanted to see what Ratai would look like if everyone there was a corpse, now's your chance to find out. This stat can be tracked under people killed. Hunter requires you to kill 50 animals. They don't have to be wild animals, as cows, sheep, and dogs all count towards this achievement, along with rabbits, deer, and boar. The only animals that don't count are chickens. This can be tracked under animals killed. And finally, Fighter requires you to pull off 100 combos in battle. This can be difficult to do against high level opponents, so a simple solution is to go train with Captain Bernard, ask him to learn combos, and during the lesson, hit him with any longsword combinations you know apart from the ones he's trying to teach you. Whilst in this training, he never attacks or counters you, so this is a simple way to rack up combinations. After several runs through the training, you should easily have 100 combos. This can be tracked under combos performed. Now moving on to the crime tab, there's 2 achievements that can be tracked here. Thief requires you to steal over 30,000 groschen worth of gold or gear. This doesn't matter if it's pickpocketed, looted, or taken from chests, as long as it's classified as stolen, it'll count towards your total value. This can be tracked under value stolen. Convict requires you to be jailed for 3 days. This figure is once again cumulative rather than consecutive, so even small sentences can add up towards this achievement. This can be tracked under jail time. Now, under quest, there's 2 more that can be tracked. Completionist requires you to complete 80 quests. This doesn't matter if they're main story, side quests, or DLC, but they do all have to be passed since failing them won't count towards this achievement. This can be tracked in quests completed. Pilgrim might just be one of the most obscure quests on this entire list since only 0.8% of players have ever achieved it, and I think that has more to do with the description on it being misleading rather than this achievement being difficult. The description states that you must find all crosses and wayside shrine locations on the map, but this simply isn't true. What it actually requires is for you to read the shrines and wayside crosses as you come across them. Every time you find a new shrine or cross, read the name that's etched there and your art objects found entry will increase by 1. Once this figure reaches 90, this achievement will unlock. What the game also doesn't tell you is there's actually 37 art objects you can get for free outside of shrines and crosses. In most of the churches across the map, you'll see murals on the walls which can be read and count as progress towards this achievement. There's a grand total of 21 within Ratai, with 2 being in Perkstein on the upper floor in the last room on the left, 3 being in the lower church, 12 being in Ratai's upper church by the Huntsman, and 4 in the doorways of Ratai's upper castle on the second story. Talmberger has 3 in the prayer room, where Divish and Lady Stephanie are often seen praying. The Ujits church has 4, with 1 being located downstairs, and the other 3 can be accessed by going around the back, going up the scaffolding, and headed up to the second story balcony. And finally, the church in Sasau by the Cobbler has a total of 9, with 8 being downstairs and 1 being upstairs that can be accessed through an easy locked door around the back of the church. With all 37 of those collected, you'll just need to find the remaining 53 wayside shrines and crosses. While this might sound like a lot, there's a total of 91 shrines and crosses across the map, so really you only need to find about half of them. Just make sure to dismount your horse and read them as you come across them. I'll also leave a link to an interactive KCD map in the description that has everything from treasure map locations to shrines, crosses, and caves that could all be filtered out to suit your needs, so finding them all should be a breeze. Now moving on to the dialogue tab, the achievement Haggler can be tracked from here. Once the figure in the money saved by haggling reaches 2000 groschen, this achievement will unlock. This also doesn't matter whether it's buying or selling goods, so haggle every time you speak to any of the merchants and you should easily get this achievement before the end of your playthrough. Moving down to the craft tab, there's 3 achievements that can be tracked here. Bookworm is unlocked by reading 20 books. You'll first need to learn how to read, then any book with a gold star beside it can be read. This doesn't matter if it's a regular book, a skill book, potion recipe, or treasure map, as each one counts towards this achievement. As soon as your written works examined entry reaches 20, this achievement will unlock. Edward Kelly requires you to brew 15 different types of potions. Each different potion you brew will make a unique potions brewed entry go up by 1, with story specific ones such as the cure for Merhoyed and fake blood also counting towards this achievement. If you're struggling with brewing potions, I have a video that explains everything you need to know about alchemy within the game, so make sure to check that out if you need help. Otherwise, as soon as this entry reaches 15, this achievement will unlock. David Horak requires you to pick 10,000 herbs. There's not really much to this one, just pick up clusters of plants until this achievement unlocks, and it can be tracked under herbs collected. And finally, rounding off the final achievement that can be tracked within the statistics tab, we have Gambler, which can be tracked under gambling, and money won at dice. You can play Farkle at most of the taverns located around the map, and you can improve your odds of winning through the level 12 agility perk, the perfect throw, drinking a Privoslavets boar after rebuilding the tavern in Privoslavets, and finding loaded dice hidden within the treasure maps all over the map. It's also worth noting that losing a dice doesn't ever actually subtract from this figure, so if your only concern is getting this achievement, losing will only hurt your pride instead of your progress. Now moving away from the statistics tab, here's where you can track your progress with a few more achievements within your player menu. Under the reputation tab, you can track your progress towards the achievement King Charming. To get this achievement, your reputation has to be above 80 in at least 10 towns across the map. For those that have DLCs, any of these 2 listed can also be substituted either for Kuno's Camp and Band of Bastards or Privoslavets in From the Ashes. Reputation within a town can be improved by doing side quests for the citizens in that specific town or by giving the merchants there discounts while haggling. This one's highly missable since there are certain towns and villages that have limited side quests and some merchants like Samopesh, so it can be difficult to raise your reputation there once you tank it. If you're going for this achievement, it's usually a good idea to be on your best behavior within the major cities on the map, at least until you unlock this achievement. The achievements Bard and Level Cap can both be observed within your Stats tab. Bard requires you to reach a speech level of 20. This isn't necessarily hard, it's just time consuming. When speaking to any of the NPCs, always select every white dialogue option that you see to slowly advance this skill. The biggest skill gains can actually be seen through passing skill checks whenever you're presented with them. Another couple ways to slowly progress the speech skill is by haggling with merchants or playing dice. Now, I was able to do this on a run in hardcore mode with the numbskull perk selected, which limits skill gain to 60%, so there's definitely enough dialogue within the game for you to do this, and anyone in normal mode shouldn't have any trouble reaching 20 before the end of the game.
Henry, it was the most wonderful night of my life.
Level Cap, on the other hand, requires you to reach a main level skill of 20. This is progressed by raising your strength, agility, vitality, and speech stats. Your secondary skills won't have any effect on your main level. You'll have to have 20s across the board in all of these stats before the main level stat can reach 20. For all the best ways to advance all these skills, check out Strat's video on how to level every skill within KCD. Another determining factor on your main level stat is main questline progression. It is possible to have 20s across the board in all of your stats, but still not have a main level skill of 20. If that's the case, progressing the main questline should help you level this stat. Once the main level skill reaches 20, this achievement will unlock. The last one that can be observed within the player menu is Traveler, which requires you to find each of the fast travel locations located across the map. There are 16 in total, and they can be seen in your fast travel tab under the map page. As soon as all 16 locations are listed there, this achievement will unlock. Unfortunately, that tab is only accessible if you're in normal mode, but the achievement can still be unlocked in hardcore mode. You'll just have to go and discover the locations where the fast travel icon would be if it was available. And finally, the last achievement associated with activities is Alcoholic, and while it can't be tracked in the player menu, it's fairly simple to get. This requires you to drink alcohol in quick succession to get the alcoholic debuff. The stronger the alcohol, the more likely you are to become addicted. A way to get this pretty simply is by crafting 2 or 3 Lethean waters and a hair of the dog potion. Quickly drink all 3 Lethean waters back to back, and at lower drinking levels, this is pretty much guaranteed to get you addicted since each one has a value of 101% alcohol. As soon as the debuff appears, the achievement will unlock. Immediately drink a hair of the dog potion to get rid of your drunk status along with your alcoholic debuff so you don't black out and wake up with half your inventory missing. The only downside to doing this method is you will have to repick all of your perk points since a Lethean water will reset your character, but for those looking to respec, this is a quick way of doing both at once. Now that will complete all 49 achievements that are part of the base game, so now let's move on to the DLCs. The first 2 DLCs I'll cover are actually free that were released after the game's launch, so while they are technically DLCs, everyone should have access to them within the vanilla game. The first one is the Tournament DLC, and this only has one achievement called Arena Master. This requires you to win the Ratai tourney on 5 separate occasions and win the entire Lords of Lipa armor set. There's a total of 5 pieces associated with this armor, so as soon as you win the 5th and final piece, this achievement will unlock.
You did it in the end, Henry.
The next DLC is the Hardcore DLC, which has 3 achievements available. To achieve any of these, at the start of the game, you must first select Hardcore mode and pick your associated debuff that will stick with you for the duration of your playthrough. You also won't be able to change this difficulty at any point within the playthrough, so once you pick this, you're kinda stuck with it. The first achievement is Kingdom Did Not Come. This is probably going to be the easiest achievement on this entire list. Just die in hardcore mode. That's it. Most players will unlock this by accident, but for those that are following along this guide, you already most likely got this achievement back at the start of the game alongside the Firestarter achievement within Skalitz. The next 2 are a little bit more difficult as they require total game completion. The first is Hardcore Henry, which requires you to finish the game in hardcore mode. The other is Tis But a Scratch, and that has the same requirements, but needs to be done in hardcore mode with all 9 negative perks selected at the start of the game. Also note that these don't have to be unlocked on separate playthroughs, so just to save time, play the game in hardcore mode with all 9 negative perks selected, and both will unlock in the game's final cutscene. Now let's move on to the paid DLCs. There's a grand total of 4 paid DLCs that have been released for this game, and I'll go through each one of them, starting off with A Woman's Lot. The Woman's Lot DLC is actually split into 2 separate parts, so first I'll start with Theresa's part, which becomes available as soon as you wake up in Ratai after completing the tutorial. This one probably pissed a lot of people off since the game doesn't give any indication that you're about to go into a 4 to 6 hour adventure that's completely detached from Henry, so I'll warn you now, you'll be playing through Skalitz again in this portion, except this time through the perspective of Theresa. There's a total of 4 achievements we can get in this portion. The first achievement is called Bad Girl. This is done by ignoring all 5 of your morning chores. Upon waking up, you're instructed to feed the dog, weed the garden, and feed the chickens. Instead, ignore all of these prompts and run away down the road. Just before reaching the arguing stable master and scholar, a notification will pop up that you failed all 3. As soon as that happens, run back to the house and speak to your father. He scolds you for not doing your chores and assigns you to wake up Samuel and make Zbyszek go to work. Ignore both of these prompts as well and run down the same road towards Skalitz. Upon reaching the same point in the road, the other 2 objectives will fail and this achievement will unlock. Up next is Death by Splinter. Start this by speaking to Bianca, located at the tavern in Skalitz, who asks you to give Henry a beer, and he can be seen at the combat arena up the road from the tavern. Give Henry the beer, agree to have a sparring match with him, and the achievement will unlock as soon as the sparring match is over. You also don't need to win this fight, just participating is good enough to unlock this achievement. The next one that can be unlocked is Angel of Mercy, which won't be done until the morning after the attack on Skalitz and requires you to help 5 people on your way back into town. These are all marked on your map, so speak to the injured man outside the mines, Yarmila, Julian the Woodcutter, Merosh, and Stanislav the Potter. Convince all of them to flee by completing their task, and the achievement will unlock after helping the 5th and final NPC. The last achievement is called Woman's Lot, which requires you to complete Theresa's story. As soon as you cross the front gate into Skalitz, Theresa's story will end, so make sure to do all the optional objectives for Angel of Mercy before going back into Skalitz, otherwise that one becomes unobtainable. Now that's all the ones that are connected to Theresa's story, but the second part of the DLC is actually played through as Henry and comes much later on in the story. To gain access to Johanka's portion of A Woman's Lot, you'll first need to complete the quest In God's Hands, which becomes available in Sasau anytime after the tutorial, and you'll have to advance the main story past the quest Questions and Answers, which is the quest that takes place in Merhoyed. However, I strongly suggest waiting to do this portion during the epilogue, since there are certain achievements that will become unachievable if you haven't at least progressed past the monastery portion of the main questline. I'll explain that more in detail a little later, but for now, I'll go through all of them in chronological order. The first achievement is Infernal Justice, which is unlocked in Johanka's first quest, Infernal Dream. Once finding the mineshaft, go down to the end and observe what you find. After seeing the pile of corpses being disposed here, leave the mine and go up the hill where the shaft leads above the ground. Once you find the opening, follow the blood trail to the camp and confront the Skalitz soldier. Kill him, pick up his corpse, and go back to the opening. Dump his body so he can join his victims, and the achievement will unlock. Interestingly enough, there's actually a way to make him fall into the opening without killing him first. While it's a bit tricky, it can be done to successfully maintain the Merciful achievement. Next is the achievement You Had One Job, which can be done in Johanka's second quest, Casting Lots. This requires you to black out while drinking with Taylor Ambrose. I recommend having a low drinking skill for this, and make sure to save prior to speaking to the tailor. Also keep in mind that having the Bacchus perk in your drinking skill tree will make this achievement unobtainable, since it prevents you from ever blacking out while drinking. Speak to Taylor Ambrose at the tavern and suggest that you should drink together. Select all the options within the dialogue that have the most alcohol by their descriptions, and you should black out either during the conversation or while playing dice. As soon as you black out, reload that prior save to do the quest the proper way. If you do black out, this will lock you out from having the tailor and his wife as witnesses during Johanka's trial, which can make getting that achievement a bit harder, but for those that want to roleplay, just make sure to get positive results in all the rest of Johanka's quests so there are as many witnesses as possible during your trial and you should be okay. Voyeur is obtained in Johanka's third quest, Go and Sin No More, which requires you to pickpocket Huntsman without being caught. If you don't know how to pickpocket, Pesha can teach you at the Ratai Mill, then make your way to the Ledetchko Baths, convince the bathhouse madam to let you in, crouch down, and pickpocket Huntsman. If your pickpocketing skill is low, make sure to save prior to entering the bathhouse so you can try again if you fail, but he only has white item in his inventory, so it should be fairly easy to pick out. As soon as you pickpocket it, this achievement will unlock. Like a Ghost can be unlocked as part of Johanka's 5th questline, Bonum Commune, which requires you to get Pavel's treasure without being discovered. Follow Pavel's instructions on how to get to the hidden treasure, then follow the stream uphill until reaching a footpath with Pavel's yellow chaperone. Make a right, follow the path until reaching a camp that's occupied by 3 humans. Before entering the camp, I recommend making a save since you might not know whether or not you were successful until much later on. Sneak around back of the camp and you should have a good view of all the humans. Crouch down and enter the crumbling shack that's located on your left. Under the rubble of the fireplace is a dagger and 1800 groschen. Collect all of this, sneak back out of the camp, then make your way over to Sasau, donate all the money in Pavel's name to one of his approved organizations, and speak to Pavel one last time. If everything was done successfully, the achievement should unlock here. Now these next 3 achievements are not so much dependent on what you do within the quest itself, but rather what you've done leading up to them. These can be tricky since both Cleric's Pet and Full House Sinner allude to prior quests that have choices associated with them, and depending on the choices you made, can make both of these unobtainable. Doing every quest required for them will also cancel out the Virgin and the Merciful achievements. First up is Full House Sinner, which can be done during Johanka's 6th quest, The Wicket Gate. Johanka will ask you to accompany her while she makes her speech, but during the sermon, there's a group of rioters that attack. After fighting off the rioters, it's at this point you'll need to make sure that all the following has been done before speaking to Johanka. You must have been to jail at least once with 2 to 3 days recorded in your jail time section. You must have been caught stealing. I'm less sure if it's associated with the amount stolen or the fact that you've been caught doing it, but having around 10,000 groschen worth of stolen stuff in a playthrough is generally good enough. Just to be safe, you can also steal something minor, get caught by the guards, and simply pay off your bounty so at least you've been seen stealing. You must have killed Runt and at least one other person. This will avoid the Merciful achievement. Runt is killed within the main story, so that one's unavoidable, but at least one other person will have to be killed. This can be a bandit, human, or civilian. You must have gone to the bathhouse and selected to pay for a wench option at some point within the playthrough. This will void the Virgin achievement. I've also found that this one can be a little bit buggy, so just to be safe, make sure to go and do that right before speaking to her so the alpha male perk that you receive is still active while you speak to her. When I tested this seemed to fix the issue. And finally, when completing the quest At Your Service My Lady, you must have selected the option to sleep with Lady Stephanie. If you refused, this achievement becomes unobtainable. If all the stuff I've listed above has been done, the achievement will unlock in the middle of your conversation with Johanka. The next 2 achievements are both done within the quest The Trial, the first of which being Cleric's Pet. This is done before the trial takes place, and I recommend having all these side quests done before getting to this point, as once the Inquisitor becomes involved, you'll only have 3 days to gather the evidence and mount a defense for Johanka. When speaking to the Inquisitor, select there have been some suspicious activities and report all the wrongdoings throughout the province. The quests that must be completed before starting this conversation are as follows. The quest Mysterious Ways as part of the main questline in Ujits, and you must select to drink with Father Godwin. This choice will void the Virgin achievement. A Man of Cloth given in Ravna, which requires finding Father Seidman, the old Skalitz priest. Waldensians, which is given in Ratai by Hanush after main story quest Mysterious Ways is completed, and you must find the heretics. Playing with the Devil, given in Ujits by Father Godwin, and the ceremony the women conduct must be interrupted. The House of God, given by Sir Divish and Talmberger, and the Devil's Skull must be discovered. And finally, either in the Cloister or in the quest Nasty Habits must be done by either observing the elections for a new abbot between Nevlos and John, or the Circader's drinking habits must be discovered within the monastery cellar, and the quest Nasty Habits must be started. Worth noting here is that the quest Nasty Habits can actually be failed, but you'll still have have the option to talk about it, you just have to catch the Circaders drinking. After telling the Inquisitor about either one of these monastery activities, he questions how you learned of this, and you must select the correct name of the novice that gave you the information, which in this case would be Horak. Now selecting Siskin or Lucas will also work, but any other name will result in you getting a jail penalty of 6 days, and you'll miss Johanka's trial, which will result in the Angel of Mercy achievement becoming unobtainable. As far as this achievement, after the final wrongdoing is reported, this achievement will unlock.
But how do you know about it?
Now the final achievement within the woman's law is called Angel of Mercy, which requires Johanka to be acquitted of her heresy charges. Once again, I won't go into too much detail about how to do any of these things. Instead, I'll list the things that should be done to give Johanka the best chance of passing with a favorable outcome. Having a good outcome with Guta by giving Ambrose back his groschen after winning it from him and convince them to speak at her trial. Convince Adela to help at the monastery with the sick and ask her to speak at the trial. Recover Pavel's treasure, donate it in his name to an approved cause, and ask him to speak at the trial. Convince Johanka to speak with humility by giving her Matthias's lucky die. Tell the Inquisitor about all the wrongdoings within the region. Speak to Father Fabian about his testimony. Speak to the bailiff of Sasau about his testimony, but don't try to bribe him to speak highly of Johanka. Get a confession from Katra, the swordsmith's wife, that she was in fact the one that hired the thugs who attacked Johanka. Convince the custodian Sebastian von Bergau to speak at the trial. And finally, convince Brother Nicodemus to speak at Johanka's trial. With all these objectives complete, you should be in great shape for a positive outcome. While they aren't all necessary, as long as most of them are complete, and most importantly, Johanka speaks with humility, she should be acquitted of all her charges, and after the cutscene, the achievement should unlock. As previously mentioned, don't miss the deadline given by the Inquisitor, or you won't have the chance to speak at all at the trial, which will result in Johanka having a negative outcome. With everything covered in a woman's lot, let's move on to the DLC From the Ashes, which requires you to rebuild all of Privoslavets after completing the main story quest Baptism of Fire. It can be started with Sir Divish and Talmberger and has 4 achievements that can be unlocked. I recommend doing these in the following order, since some of them become more difficult if not unobtainable if done out of turn. The first one to focus on is Perfectionist, which requires Privoslavets to make over 2,000 groschen per day. The easiest way to do this is by building up all the money-making buildings first, without ever touching the Rathaus or the church, as these don't generate money, and instead actively drain money out of your daily earnings. There isn't just one way to do this, but here was my method. First, load up the chest by the tent with groschen so you can start construction. The cost associated with each project comes out of this chest rather than your inventory, along with any daily wages that are required for keeping your town villagers happy. Start by first building the woodcutter's camp, then the bridge and road, and finally the trader store. This will give access to getting supplies from the merchants located around the map. Next, pick the cheapest suppliers available, being grain from Samopesh, livestock from Ledetchko, and charcoal from Ginger's friends if you chose to help Ginger out earlier. Otherwise, go to any of the charcoal burner locations on the map and you'll have to pay full price for the charcoal. Up next is a one-time fee at the Talmberger quarry to get stone, and unlike the other supplies, you'll have to pay for this with the groschen in your inventory rather than out of your daily expenses in Privoslavets. This can be negotiated down to as low as 2,000 groschen if you have a high speech skill, but any amount you pay can be immediately pickpocketed back from Rupert if you choose to do so. Now head back up to Privoslavets and build the remaining structures. These are the ones I selected, but you can choose to build anything that you want. Just remember not to touch the church and the Rathaus until after getting this achievement. There's also judgments you can make as the bailiff that have an impact on your daily income, both positive and negative, along with NPCs you have good relationships with that can come and work for you in the village and boost your daily earnings, but that's a topic that can be a video on its own, so I won't get too deep on that here. Just know as soon as your income reaches above 2,000 groschen per day, this achievement will unlock. Now, one thing I should have mentioned a little bit sooner was that you shouldn't learn how to read just yet. That's because the achievement Trial and Error requires you to rebuild all of Privoslavets without knowing how to read. Now, all the previous steps I just mentioned can still be followed, but just note it's much easier to talk to Marius directly about what you plan to build rather than trying to read the gibberish that's located in the construction book.
What the f*** is that?
After completing Perfectionist, you'll already have 2 out of the 3 objectives required for Privoslavets to be considered complete. The first is to have a village income of at least 1200 groschen, and the second is a population of at least 40 people. The last thing required is to fully rebuild the church. This will require 2 sets of repairs on the church, along with the frescoes and the altar's improvements to be considered complete. Once the repairs have been made, go and tell Sir Divish and Talmberger about your progress, and both the achievements Bailiff and Trial and Error should unlock. If you're not interested in getting Trial and Error, Bailiff requires all the same conditions to be met as Trial and Error, with the only difference being that you can read throughout the entirety of the rebuilding process. The final achievement as part of this DLC is Friends Without Benefits, and it requires you to invite Matthew and Fritz to come and live with you in Privoslavets. If you remember the entry earlier about Judas, which requires you to betray your friends and have them executed, do the exact same steps as listed before, except this time instead of naming Matthew, Fritz, and Andrew as the culprits, just name Andrew as the sole thief, and this will leave Matthew and Fritz alive. After a couple of in-game days pass, they'll return to the inn in the Glade and spend the rest of the game there, so find them there, speak to them individually about going to live in Privoslavets, and they'll happily accept as long as you have the tavern built, and this achievement will unlock. Now moving on to the DLC Band of Bastards, it has 7 achievements that can be obtained. I'll also mention up front now, while doing this DLC, make sure you save very often. I could technically say that every single one of these achievements is missable because if Kuno dies at any point throughout this questline, apart from the final battle, the entire questline will fail and you'll be locked out of getting any of these in that playthrough unless you reload from a prior save. So now that you've been warned, make sure you save before starting each patrol or you might have to redo hours of progress. Just ask me how I know. The first achievement is Tracker, which is given during the first patrol, Bad Blood. After getting to the burnt out farm, follow the blood trail to the east to find the bandits that attacked. The achievement will unlock as soon as you approach the bandits' camp. It's worth noting that you don't actually have to attack the camp, just finding the location is enough for this achievement. Now after returning to Kuno's camp, I recommend getting both achievements associated with the Ring of Bacchus activity. The first one is called Lost Trinket. The key to getting this achievement is to have the Ring of Bacchus in your inventory and to sleep at Kuno's camp for at least 8 hours in your bed overnight, preferably between the hours of 2300 until 0700. This works best after stealing it from Stephen Fletchling for Jan Behrman within my testing. This is also RNG, so there were some nights it simply just didn't get stolen, but keep sleeping at the camp at night with the ring in your possession, and eventually, Henry will make the comment about it being gone as he wakes up, and the achievement will unlock.
Oh shit, where's that damn ring? Someone must have pinched it. And what the fuck is this?
The other achievement is called Game Over, which requires you to run through all of Kuno's gang, stealing the ring from one another until Kuno eventually asks for it to be given back to him. Retrieve the ring for Kuno, and as soon as you hand it in, the achievement will unlock. Make sure you've completed Lost Trinket before handing it into Kuno, as soon as you give it to him, the ring will disappear and make that achievement unobtainable. I also suggest finishing this one before going on the last patrol, since if Kuno dies, Game Over will become unobtainable. Now moving back to the patrols, Chivalrous Soul can be obtained in the second patrol, Uninvited Guests. You'll have to pass a stat check to convince Kuno to attack the bandits at the mill right away. His stats are an 8 in speech and a 13 in charisma, so pick whichever option you're most likely to succeed in. Upon passing this stat check, the achievement will unlock.
Right, we better try and save those girls.
There's going to be 2 achievements tied to the quest 30 Pieces, which is the 4th quest within this DLC. After tracking down Jakey for betraying the gang, you'll have a couple of options on how to deal with him. I recommend making a save right before speaking to him, as doing either option will lock you out of getting the other. The first achievement is called Torturer, which requires you to leave Jakey tied to the tree for at least 12 hours. Select the dialogue options, That's Poetic Justice, I Understand You, and You Don't Want to Talk, Alright, and then wait for 12 hours. Start a dialogue with Jakey after the time has passed, and the achievement will unlock as soon as you speak to him. Now you can reload that prior save, and this will give you access to getting Pinky Promise, which requires you to untie Jakey, listen to what he has to say, and you have to select Clear Off before I change my mind. If you do this, Jakey will warn you that Hagen plans to pay off Kuno before the final confrontation, which is a piece of information that can be used in the following quest. As soon as the dialogue with Jakey ends, this achievement will unlock. The final achievement in Band of Bastards is called Mercenary's Honor, which can be unlocked right before the final confrontation. This requires you to convince Kuno to stay and fight against Hagen Zul. You can either bribe him yourself for 15,000 groschen, pass a speed check, or if you warned him of Hagen's plan to bribe him prior to starting the quest, you can use that information to convince him to stay. Passing any of these will result in Kuno refusing Hagen's bribe, and the achievement will unlock. And finally, we have the last DLC in the game, The Amorous Adventures of Bold Sir Hans Capon, which has 7 achievements that can be unlocked and can be started by speaking to Hans Capon and Ratai after completing the side quest Robber Baron. It's also the only DLC that's required to complete before you can officially beat the game. If you make it to the epilogue and go to the camp where Capon waits to ride to Trotsky Castle with this DLC installed, he insists on finishing this entire questline before leaving, which is a little annoying to say the least. Nonetheless, let's get into how to unlock all the achievements. The first 2 are actually contradictory, but surprisingly, both can be done in the same playthrough without requiring you to reload a prior save. After starting the quest Game of Throws, go to the bandit camp location to retrieve Capon's necklace. After finding the Robber Baron's camp, gain entry by selecting the correct dialogue options with the guard, and then save the game. At this point, you can unlock the achievement Lord Capon's Ghost. This achievement requires a decent stealth skill and a lockpicking skill of at least 6 with the perk Luck of the Drunk, some alcohol, and a lockpick. To the right of the camp entrance is a mine which can be followed down to a ruined hut. Sneak into the room towards the back of the hut, and behind a closed door you'll find a very hard locked chest. Lockpick the chest open and take Capon's necklace out of the trunk. The achievement will unlock as soon as you take the necklace. However, if you leave the hut and immediately go and roll in the dice tournament, you can still unlock the achievement I can quit anytime without having to reload. Speak to old Blaha about enrolling in the dice tourney. If you aren't very skilled at dice, make sure to save before starting each round of the tourney so you don't have to redo the whole thing in case you lose. There's a grand total of 4 opponents, the first of which being Noggin. Now he isn't very skilled at dice, but he does challenge you to a duel after you win, so make sure to have a weapon and some decent armor equipped prior to starting the game. The second opponent, Berta, also isn't very good. However, the third opponent, Mladata, has a full set of golden dice and is probably the hardest player in the whole tourney. In fact, it's not all that uncommon for him to reach the 6,000 points required to win the game in about 2 or 3 turns, so he can be especially tricky to play. The final player in the tourney is Pakuna, who isn't very good either. Now, by the time you finish the 4th and final game, if you won all 4, the achievement will unlock. If instead you won 3 out of the 4, you'll have to rematch Pakuna for the championship. Losing 2 or more games will result in a loss and make this achievement unobtainable. The next 3 achievements can all be unlocked in Capon's second quest, No Rest for the Wicked, and this requires you to speak to the charlatan who starts out his journey at the Sasau Traders Market. If you opt to buy the Musk of Infinite Allure recipe from him, all these achievements become unobtainable, so instead elect to become his apprentice and complete his side quest Miracles while you wait. After he flees to Ledetchko, you can find him in the center of town and start working on the following 2 achievements. First, dig up the charcoal burner's corpse, then speak to the gossip, then the charlatan, then back to the gossip. She's going to give you 2 possible locations for you to bury the remains of Lev the charcoal burner. First, make a save, then pick which one you want to do first. To unlock Christian burial, travel back to Ratai, find the grave marked on your map, and bury Lev's remains there. As soon as the remains are buried, this achievement will unlock. Now you can reload that save and get the other achievement. Not So Christian Burial requires you to bury Lev with his wife and son. You'll find their statue to the west of Ledetchko and their graves right beside it. Interact with the graves here and the achievement will unlock after Lev is buried beside his family. The last one within this quest is called Ledetchko Revenant, which requires you to haunt the villagers of Ledetchko in more ways than just the charlatan suggests. The 4 objectives assigned to you are to color the bathwater with fake blood, replace the butcher's meat with rotten meat, replace the eggs in the chicken coops with charcoal, and steal at least 5 rosaries from the civilians. After doing all 4 of those, you can also convince the ruffians outside of town to cause more trouble, throw rotten eggs down the well at the bathhouse, and kill a couple of civilians within the town of Ledetchko. That last one is completely optional if you're going for a merciful achievement, but just know that it can be done. After completing all the additional objectives, speak to the charlatan, lure Felix and his friends to the dug up grave, and make sure to only scare Felix and his friends away. If you kill any of them during this quest, this achievement will become unobtainable. After waking up the next day, speak to the charlatan one last time, who comments that you might have gotten a little too carried away with the haunting, and the achievement will unlock after the dialogue concludes.
What will you do now?
I could go now.
The final 2 achievements, Wingman and True Friend, both depend on Hans's meeting with Carolina to be successful. After meeting Capon at night, convince him to go to the meetup with Carolina right away. If you give him a potion to heal the rash, or wait until the next day for the rash to disappear, the achievement True Friend will become unobtainable. Follow him to the rendezvous and pick the dialogue options as follows. After a short cutscene, the butcher will find you around back and you'll have to distract him to buy time for Hans Capon. All the options here are stat checks, and the butcher's stats won't change throughout this whole encounter, so pick the option you have the highest likelihood to be successful in and stick with that throughout the entirety of this encounter. At the end, choose to sing, then continue to sing, then continue to sing again, and if you made it all the way through the dialogue, the achievement Wingman will unlock. Then by waiting until the next morning, speak to Hans Capon about his night, and if you convinced him to go with a rash and he was successful the night before, the achievement True Friend will unlock as soon as you finish the dialogue.
How did it go?
Henry, it was the most wonderful night of my life.
And that was my guide on how to get every single achievement in Kingdom Come Deliverance. Another huge thanks to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to check out War Thunder for free on PC, consoles, or mobile devices, and use my links in the description to register. Players that are new or haven't played in 6 months will receive a massive bonus pack across PC and consoles, including premium vehicles, in-game currency, and much more. If you want to see my attempt to get all 82 of these achievements in a single playthrough, click the links on the screen. A huge thank you to all the YouTube members and Patreon supporters who make videos like this possible. If you want to join the ranks, become a YouTube member or Patreon supporter today to get member exclusive bonuses such as loyalty badges, custom emojis, early access to videos like this, member exclusive videos, and much more. Thanks again for watching, and have yourself a great day.